I want to bring into this conversation Squad Leader Gini Chaudhary. With us is Captain Manjula Katoch and of course Sandeep Unnithan. Squad Leader Chaudhary, let me begin by asking you, air power, it was the weapon of choice and it's delivered in these operations, not just to take out terror, but also to destroy some of the biggest targets of Pakistan Air Force.
Yes, Gaurav. See, when we talk about our armed forces, the first thing which comes in our mind, India is known for its professionalism when it comes to armed forces. And from past 2-3 days, what we've been seeing, it is evident enough that we have performed professionally, unlike our adversary. We have followed our principle of war in a very systematic way. Like first was selection and maintenance of aim. So we selected the targets as per our objective, and then precision attack on those targets was aptly done. Then it was no escalation from our side. So if you talk about air superiority, I heard you talk about air superiority and air dominance. So this would be not a, I would say not a correct word to use right now, because the kind of escalation it has gone to, you can say India was at the level of favorable air situation. So that would be the right word for this. So yes, certainly India was at the favorable air situation was achieved by Indian Air Force and armed forces. And that's how where we are. Clearly, we have achieved our tactical objectives and ultimately national objective.
Oh, absolutely. Also with us is Captain Manjula Katoch. Captain Katoch, the manner in which India pursued the aims that were set out, it's very clear. Rules of engagement followed, the directives that were given, they were executed virtually with perfection.
Absolutely, Gaurav, and we have been witnessing from past 3-4 days that how things are unfolding, what led to Operation Sindoor, and how we conducted this Operation Sindoor with our technical superiority and our tactical brilliance. How the targets were identified and how with precision we have really got the success in these targets. And the crossroads or the juncture we are here today is equally important, because the news of the ceasefire, it has a big role to play, and how it will take the further turn is very, very important. Today, what we need to have is our strategic patience. We are all waiting for this next brief and that conference, that what is going to happen next. But I'm sure that we are going to give a befitting reply if there was, I'm using this word, if there was a ceasefire violation, then we need to give a befitting reply and a calibrated reply to the Pakis. And I'm sure we are waiting for this conference for the brief, and let's see how things unfold further.
Oh, you're absolutely right, ma'am, and I want to bring in my colleague Sandeep Unnithan, and let's just get into some of the specifics now. Sandeep, total air dominance when it came to destroying some of the strongest bases in Pakistan, which Pakistan perhaps could never even think that India would strike. Sargodha, for example. For the benefit of our viewers, Sandeep, explain why Sargodha in its depth area was Pakistan's perhaps the best fortified location, and how that was targeted.
Well, Gaurav, Sargodha is not an ordinary air base. Anyone who studied nuclear weapons in the subcontinent will tell you that that is where the Pakistan Air Force stores its nuclear weapons. The Pakistan Special Strategic Plans Division, which handles their nuclear weapons, that's where they store their nuclear weapons. There are sites there in hills very close to Sargodha, which have bunkers where the nuclear weapons are kept. This is a few kilometers away from the airbase. So right from the 1980s, if you notice, Americans have been studying Sargodha very carefully. Of course, we have been studying it as well. The drill was for the Pakistanis to take the weapons out of the vaults in the hills near Sargodha and load it onto their F-16s. Every time there was a border crisis, they would do that and try and get American attention. Now, nobody in Pakistan would have imagined that Sargodha would have been targeted with the kind of precision strikes that we carried out on that base. I'm sure Indian strategic commentators would have been alarmed, equally alarmed as well. That hole in the middle, that crater in the middle of Sargodha airfield is a very, very, very big signal to Pakistan's army, GHQ Rawalpindi, that we can hit you. We are not worried about you waving the nuclear threat in our face. We will even hit your nuclear installations to send you a message. Now, see, I mean, look at it, Gaurav. Over the last 3 decades, ever since Pakistan has had the nuclear weapon, the bomb, it's used this nuclear weapon as a shield to protect its sword of inflicting a death by 1,000 cuts. So this is what is called nuclear weapons-enabled terrorism. There's no other country in the world that does it. There are 9 nuclear-armed states. Pakistan is the only rogue nation that actually uses nuclear weapons to protect its terrorists.
You know, what an important point you make there. If you look at what's happened between India and Pakistan as part of Operation Sindoor, Squad Leader Chaudhary, the only situation where 2 nuclear weapon states are using in the 21st century, armed with beyond visual range missiles, using a supersonic cruise missile to take out targets, or using precision weapons to take out 11 military targets, from crucial airfields to radars to command and control stations. That just shows India's not just air power, but the entire might of the nation. You can take on a nuclear weapon state under the nuclear umbrella, fight conventional situations to send across a message: terror is unacceptable to India.
Certainly, Gaurav. See the way, how professionally our armed forces have performed till now. The precision hits, the targets were hit precisionally. So, what the point I want to bring out here is, if you do a comparative analysis between 2 countries, see what India has done, selected the targets, and precision attacks were done on those targets. On the other hand, if you see Pakistan, I'm sure you're aware of the fact then how 300 to 400 drones were sent across behind their civil airline.
Yes.
So that is the point which clearly shows how unprofessional, how unreliable that country is. So we are right now handling the country which is not reliable, which is unprofessional. So just imagine the plight of our leaders, our head-up leaders, military leaders, or political leaders who will be handling such situation. So certainly it is a challenging situation for India as well. But as Indian Armed Forces, we are just following we follow chain of command always. So whatever our political leaders or our military leaders ask us to do, so it is a collaborative effort, collaborative decision, collaboratively among all 3 forces. The strategies are made, and that's how we move forward. So now, as you see, ceasefire is there, and but still, if you remember, if you see in the morning, Chief of Air Staff has tweeted that operations are still on. So with that, you can see that we are still ready and prepared for any action from their side.
Because Pakistan is a country, Captain Katoch, that in your military appreciation, if Pakistan sought a ceasefire and peace at the borders, can Pakistan be trusted, ma'am?
Not at all, Gaurav. And this is not the first time that Pakistan has backstabbed us. And we have seen from time immemorial, Pakistan has always been backstabbing us. And we know it from 47, 48 times only. But yes, this was the reason why, although we agreed to that ceasefire, despite that, we made it very, very clear that we are agreeing for the ceasefire just for the sake of, this regional stability, you can say, or maybe to preserve this civilian population ko thoda sa console karne ke liye. But at the same time, we have not taken back the decision of cancelling the Indus Water Treaty. We have not withheld that visa of Pakistanis. So all the decisions are still intact, and we are ready, still ready for it. It is said, no, okay, it is not over until it's over. So it's not over yet. We are actually waiting what is going to happen next. It's not over yet.
A country that is just so unreliable. But the targets that were selected, Sandeep, each and every one of them, from Skardu in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and on a map of the country, I want to explain why Skardu in POJK coming down from there to Pakistan's Punjab province, take a look at Chaklala being targeted. Take a look at Sukur, Rahim Yar Khan, Kasur, Sialkot, Noor Khan, Murid, Rafiki, Sargodha, and then come down to the Sindh province, even Pasrur, their important radar station there. From top to bottom, every part of Pakistan that faces India was in the line of India's fire. Watch that, watch that. So Skardu in Pakistan occupied Jammu Kashmir, what they call their northern areas, that was that runway. There's a hole punched in there. Noor Khan, Rawalpindi, one of their most crucial command and control communication squadron, as in their VVIP squadron, their C-130s also parked there. The Gulf Stream, their mid-air refueler, that's parked there. Noor Khan, also one of their strategic Air Force bases. Sialkot is an aviation base. Pasrur is an early warning station. It's a radar station that's been taken down. Rafiki has been taken down. Sukur is a dual radar station that's been taken down. Jacobabad is an F-16 base that's been taken down. Chunia is a radar technical depot. Bolari is again extremely crucial in terms of their facilities in the Sindh province. So Sandeep, look at all the targets that have been taken down. What does this say of Pakistan's air defense and India's offensive?
Well, Gaurav, what you just read out is possibly the Indian Air Force's targeting book. You've just pulled out a page from it and read it, and the Air Force has done exactly what they would do in case of a war with Pakistan. But this is again signaling, Gaurav. Many of those air bases, they have all been, their air strips have been punctured just to send out a signal. The whole base hasn't been destroyed. So you've taken out the airfields, you've taken out the runways, you've cratered their runways just to prevent operations, sending out a big message. These are initial strikes. We can accelerate it. We can ensure that those bases are never used. And I'm sure, judging by the list of targets that you've just read out, it's very possible that the PAF would have panicked and immediately withdrawn to their rearward bases closer to the Iran and Afghanistan border. So the PAF has about 40 air bases. 18 of them are the operational air bases. The rest are all runways. They are emergency airfields. They're commissioned only in times of war. I wouldn't be very surprised if the PAF has already started flying its aircraft from highways. They have those things where they convert highways into runways.
Yes.
They would have done that. I'm sure there would have been general panic across the PAF, but because what you just read out is something that we haven't seen in 54 years, not since the 1971 war, Gaurav. So it's very, very significant. And whatever claims the PAF may make about an air battle and supposed losses of Indian aircraft, where did they land? Where did their fighters land? It looks like they've left a wreckage of airfields on the ground. Whatever claims they've made in the air, all of that has been neutralized on the ground. So this is a very big crisis for the PAF, Gaurav.
Oh, absolutely. And when you look at each and every target, and look, we've been doing that. India Today Open Source Intelligence has been looking at each site that government said has been targeted. That Memuna Jot again is Joya is a terrorist camp that was taken down. Bimbar Barnala is one of the biggest Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist jungle training and launch pads, as is Kotli Gulpur. I want you to look at each and every of those targets so that you would know Kotli Abbas, very, very crucial in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Kotli, the name has come so many times, Sandeep, when we would be reporting on counter-terror operations that terrorists were staying at Kotli and they were launched from Kotli, or they were launched from Bimbar, they were launched from Sarjal. Those camps have all been taken down, Sandeep.
Absolutely, Gaurav.
Sandeep.
Yeah,
Gaurav,
go on, Captain Katoj.
Yeah, so I'm really dying to say this, that I would like to summarize all the list of targets that you have just read out.
Sure.
That speaks about pure, precise and planned is the response that India has given us. So that is a brief summary of how India conducts its operation. It is planned, it is precise, and it is pure. Absolutely ethical.
And intelligence-based operations, as you very rightly pointed out. In fact, even in that meeting that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had with the three services chiefs, the National Security Advisor, with Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh, had both our intelligence services chiefs present there in that meeting, giving last-minute inputs before those strikes were ultimately carried out, Sandeep.
Absolutely, Gaurav. And you know, this is literally the crux of this operation. And I'm sure, let's wait for the government actually to come out with the details. But, you know,
In
given
just
the fact
about an hour from now, it's 6:30 is where the government will have a briefing, Sandeep.
you know, we know what happened in Balakot as well. It was a surgical strike which was based on intel from the ground. We had operatives on the ground inside the camp, outside the camp. And all of this was, the intel came from the ground based on which the Air Force launched that airstrike. And I'm pretty sure, given the kind of range of targeting that had been done, especially against the terrorist sanctuaries, the headquarters, there would have been a lot of ground intel, Gaurav. The IB, the RNAW, military intelligence, NTRO, everybody would have pulled in intelligence, everything that they'd got to draw up a list of these targeting sites, you know. And like you were mentioning earlier, Gaurav, all these sites that we've been reporting for 20, 25 years, you know, in the US, they have that thing where you go to Hollywood, a tour bus takes you around the homes of those stars. They'll take you, they'll tell you this is where Jack Nicholson lives, this is where Harrison Ford lives. Pakistan possibly could have done that over the last 20 years because everybody knew where the Jaish headquarters was, where the Lashkar headquarters was. This is the launch pad, this is the seminary, this is the mosque. I've been to Pakistan once and I've seen these, part of a state visit, of course. I've seen it, the Jaish parading around openly, the Lashkar parading around openly. I've seen them brandishing weapons. This is the Lashkar-e-Taiba mosque. You know, and today, in 2025, you have attacked these targets for the first time. After 25 years of the Pakistan army running a low-cost operation against India, attempting to bleed India with death by 1,000 cuts, today they've realized that it has a high cost. It is not a low-cost operation anymore. Your air defense is in ruins. Your air bases have been holed. Your runways have been punctured. It's not a low-cost operation anymore. It's going to cost you money. You are living from hand to handout. You're looking at IMF bailouts. Now you'll have to decide whether you're going to feed your people with the money that you get or fix your air bases or buy new air defense systems or buy new missiles and fighter jets. So this is the strategic defeat, Gaurav, if I may call it, for Pakistan.
It's so interesting you should mention that. Would this operation be seen as a tactical operation with a strategic impact, or it's truly strategic messaging? Because when you use the manner in which you've employed your air power, Squad Leader Chaudhary, the manner in which your fighter jets, your air-to-ground missiles, your surface-to-air missiles on standby, your surface-to-air missiles also deployed, and your surface-to-surface missiles ready to be used as and when, because the preparations clearly were for a full-spectrum war, we are told.
Certainly, Gaurav. See, a strategy comes very first when you plan for how you want to go about at the tactical level. So strategy is already in place, and one strategy in place, and that is that after that you apply your strikes or air defense, you use all your strategies to get the tactical objective accomplished. So that is the whole idea about this. So once your tactical motive is clear, your objective has been achieved, after that you may vary, strategy is actually dynamic in nature. So depending upon the situation of the war, you keep changing your strategies. So ultimately, yes, it is a tactical objective which we have received all three armed forces to achieve one objective, national objective, that was terrorism, against terrorism. Another thing I want to bring out here, just want to add on to what Sandeep was mentioning about intelligence. So here is a very important point. Here comes, how our armed forces are prepared. This is the preparedness of our armed forces because, mind you, intelligence is something you gather in your peacetime, not during these times. You already have your intelligence and it was just a time to act upon it. So that's how precision were done, attacks were done, and how strategically our assets for strike and for air defense were used based on the intelligence we already have.
Okay, big story coming in. We're getting the first reaction from the government on reports of alleged US mediation, and Government of India making it very clear the United States did not play a role of a mediator. There was no role in the truce or the ceasefire that's in place. The government has put the record straight on where the United States came in and what was the role of the United States. So what government sources are telling India today is that the first conversation between Dr. S. Jaishankar, India's External Affairs Minister, and Marco Rubio, US Secretary of State, was on the 1st of May. And India told the United States very clearly that India will hit Pakistan hard should there be a response from Pakistan. India told the United States, we do not need your assistance. In fact, this is something that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has told President Donald Trump even earlier, even in 2019, when Pakistani terrorists had targeted the CRPF bus in Pulwama. US offered to mediate, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, no, we don't need your help. We'll handle this ourselves. When the air bases were hit in Pakistan, and not one, not two, but multiple, Rubio then called up Pakistan's army chief, General Asim Munir, and Pakistan told Marco Rubio, please tell India to stop firing, and we will also stop firing. India told Rubio, if Pakistan stops firing first, Pakistan will approach us on the DGMO level talks. We'll stop firing too. And that's exactly what transpired subsequently, that Pakistani DGMO contacted his Indian counterpart at 15:30 hours or at 3:30 in the afternoon. And then yesterday at 5 p.m., the ceasefire came into effect. So the government's put the record straight on the so-called US intervention for a ceasefire. It was after India had already carried out a series of strikes. And look at the areas that were targeted. Chaklala, Sukur, Rahim Yar Khan, Kasur, Sialkot, Noor Khan, Murid, Rafiki. Then you also have Skardu that was targeted, Sargodha that was targeted. And Pakistan, it just didn't know how to deal with this situation, because there are rumors and there are reports that Pakistan said it will escalate, it will fire its missiles, and its missile was intercepted. A missile which was aimed at a strategic location, it was intercepted over Sirsa, and the debris were all over fields. And even in Pakistan, that's the conversation. At least some in Pakistan speak the truth, and they've realized that it was such a disaster, all their efforts. The images that you see on your television screen, one of US Vice President J.D. Vance, he reached out to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, offered to mediate. India, of course, said, we need no intervention, we need no mediation, we will sort this out. Then it was at 3:35 on the 10th of May that the Pakistani DGMO called the Indian DGMO and sought a ceasefire. I want to quickly bring in my colleague Sandeep Punithan for more on this. And Sandeep, the US has tried to mediate in the past, the US had tried to intervene even in the past, but US intervention more likely, given the manner in which these details have come out, the kind of bases India has targeted, that Pakistan reached out to the US saying, get India to stop firing. Sandeep.
Absolutely, Gaurav. It's a familiar playbook. We've seen it in the past so many times. The last time you covered the Kargil war, Gaurav, you remember the speed with which Sartaj Aziz and Nawaz Sharif ran to Washington to get Bill Clinton to mediate and end the conflict on Pakistan's terms.
On a holiday, on a 4th of July, after they lost Tiger Hill.
After the fall of Tiger Hill. That's an interesting story. There should be a movie made on that. How they ran over there to get Bill Clinton to intervene and to save face, essentially, Gaurav. And Bill Clinton, of course, gave them an escape route, and he allowed Pakistan to claim an honorable exit from Kargil. So every time there's a problem, Gaurav, you know, Pakistan runs to two of its sponsors. It's the Americans first or the Chinese. And this time it's been the Americans. And they've raised this nuclear bogey that India has struck at our strategic airfields. They've even struck at two very critical, you know, one is the command post, which is Noor Khan Air Base, which is very close to the SPD headquarters, and the other one, which we just discussed, the Sargodha Air Base. So they would have immediately raised the red flag and said, we will have no option but to start climbing the escalation ladder, because India has done what they feared way back from 1984-85, Gaurav. It's been 40 years of Pakistan fearing an Indian attack And at times it was an Indian and Israeli attack on its nuclear facilities, which is why one of the earliest CBMs we did with the Pakistanis was in the 80s when we did that agreement not to attack each other's nuclear facilities. That was one of the CBMs that the US had mediated on. So here again, it's a similar playbook. When they're getting beaten, when they're getting hammered, when their air bases are holed and destroyed, they run to the United States for intervention, saying that, look, we will have no option now but to climb the ladder. But let's not forget that they fired high-speed missiles at us, Gaurav. I mean, this is what the government terminology is. They said high-speed missiles. I will go a step further and say those high-speed missiles were actually ballistic missiles. And again, we know how dangerous this is, Gaurav. 80 years that nuclear weapons have been around, one nuclear-armed country has never shot a ballistic missile at another nuclear-armed country. That is how dangerously provocative the Pakistanis were 2 days ago. And now they have faced the consequences. They've seen 12 of their air bases hold. They've run to the US to try and get an honorable exit from this.
This is history repeating itself again and again. India gives them an honorable exit, and that's the big debate all about. Should we have given them the honorable exit, or should we have pursued it further? Should we have punished them harder? But that's the big debate. Because remember, India is focusing on our economy. India is focusing on investment. And if you're in conflict, all of that takes a hit. But that's a debate for another time.